Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my craft space and the cards for this video. I went Slimline this time. Slimline, rainbow, coffee theme, splatter, some dry embossing with oldie but goodie favorite stencil of mine. All the good things. My current obsession is just coffee cards. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you guys. I was like trying to, think of the things. Playlists. I've mentioned this in videos. For those that aren't aware, I have tons of playlists. I've been doing this for a long time. It's well over 2,000 videos, I think, on my YouTube channel. It's a lot. It's a lot, even for me to keep track of. So I always do up playlists for different reasons, occasions, whatever. I've got my Christmas ones, my Halloween ones, my beautiful flowers playlists, whatever's going on. And my little recent videos, coffee themed, and I mentioned in one of them that there had been a request way back in the day for me to do like a coffee card series, and I never did it, technically. But I technically did. So I was going through and I was like, oh, I should gather up all of my coffee themed cards into another playlist. I already had one. I totally forgot about it. I haven't updated it in a few years. So I was doing that before I filmed this intro. So I will have a link to that playlist at the end of this video. There is, I think, 40 or 50 plus videos so far in there. I've been doing this a long time, and I've made a lot of coffee themed. Coffee and tea. A lot of it's interchangeable, whatever floats your boat. And yeah, I will link to that playlist with all of those videos, and I will continue to add to it as time goes on, depending, just whenever I make something coffee themed. I again, if you followed me for any length of time, I think you're quite aware that I don't follow any sort of schedule. I try. I'm working on it. Especially lately, because of the whole me planning to do live streaming. It's tech issues. Tech issues are my main concern, and my second concern is setting a date and time that I need to stick with. And it eludes me. But stay tuned, because I will make sure to give everyone plenty of heads up once I start doing live streams. I keep saying soon, I keep hoping soon, and then something else breaks. Anyway, today's cards. Coffee themed, obviously, and rainbow. I used my little, because I'm just loving this little coffee friend set. This is like my third video using this, and I love it. And those will be in the playlist. I'll have them linked at the end. And I combine them with... This came out a while ago. This is by Consortium. As of filming this, I think it's sold out at the moment, but they will get it back in stock. I had ordered this, I don't even know when this release came out. Consortium has absolutely beautiful pattern papers. Like, I have several of their packs that I hoard because they're just, oh, they're gorgeous. I love them. So this Over the Rainbow pack came out again, whenever it was. I'm not even sure. It was a few months ago, I think. And I've had it sitting here, and I flipped through it, and I'm just like, oh, it's beautiful. And then I don't use it. So I used it this time. So yeah. And I love that it's actually got multiples of each, like, there's like 4 sheets of each. So I love that a lot. So yeah, 40 double-sided sheets. They say 20 designs, technically. But yeah, it's basically like 2 to 4 of each, something like that. Anyway, I used them. I did some paper piecing and splattering and all the things. So just keep watching and I'll show you guys what I made. So of course, my first step in making these cards was to stamp the little coffee cup image from the Coffee Friend stamp set onto the pattern papers of choice. And I just stamped it with Simon Says Stamps Intense Black ink because I'm going to do some shading with Copic Markers. Because if you watched my last video, and if you didn't, I will have a link to, or not the last one of the recent ones anyway, when I was going on and giving all my random tips and tricks on paper piecing. Adding shading, huge difference. And I messed up on this one because I wasn't paying attention, but there's multiple papers in this pack. So I was just flipping through and choosing which side and which color that I wanted to use, because there's quite a few options in this pack. And I went with my typical rainbow. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. And I had planned ahead of time. Like I kind of measured just, with a ruler and whatnot and the stamp. I was like, how many of these can I stack up and fit on one of my standard slimline sized cards? And I was like, ooh, I can fit 6 of them. Perfect. It's all meant to be. So I did everything twice because, like I always say, if I've got the supplies out, why not make more than one? So stamped everything twice. Used my little cutter bee scissors to just trim it out of the pack so I don't have a bunch of, random loose papers all over the place. And then shading. Copic markers for this. And almost always you generally have to go darker than you'd think. I mentioned this in another video. When it comes to using alcohol-based markers on like pattern papers, pretty much anything other than white cardstock, you generally have to go darker than you would think, because everything looks darker at first, because when you first put the color down, it's wet. And then as it dries, as the solvents in the markers evaporate, etc., it will lighten up. And sometimes something will look, like you've colored it, etc., and then it dries back and it's like, what? It's not even there. So generally, but also if you're not sure, use the scraps, the open areas of the non-stamped image, and scribble your markers that you plan on using, and then let them dry. And with Copics, it takes a few minutes, literally. It's dry super quick. But let it dry, then look at it again and be like, and then determine whether or not you need to adjust, go darker, lighter, whatever. So I did all my shading on all of these. Didn't bother filming at all because it would be boring. It was the exact same thing. And just like with everything I did on these cards, but anytime I'm doing something ultra repetitive, I just zone out. I either got music going or Netflix or, podcast, whatever it is, and I just do it. I kind of zone out a bit, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the process. So I did all my shading, and then I did all my fussy cutting. And this is where with these ones, I showed in the previous video how I use like a craft knife, etc., to cut out this little center area in the handle. And then I mentioned in that video my idea of, I could probably just cut in between. That's what I did this time. Way easier. It looks a little finicky. It is a little finicky, but it wasn't difficult. It just slow and steady. This is a little bit sped up in editing, but I just take my time and do my thing. You just cut right on the line, and the cuts don't have to be perfect because that's where the black marker comes in handy in a minute. So I cut between the cup and the handle to cut out that center area, and then you won't see it when I adhere these down. You won't be able to tell I did that. So this just saved me a ton of aggravation, because I probably wouldn't have done these cards if I had to sit and fiddle with a craft knife with all of these. No, I wouldn't have done it. Like, I use a craft knife when I have to, but I don't get along with those things. And I'm always super aware of them too, because I am clumsy. So clumsy. Like, I can use scissors and all the things, but craft knives are just a beast all into their own. Anyway, black marker, my Memento TUXEDO black marker. Go around all those edges because it coats that exposed white paper, whether it be pattern paper or a stamped image on cardstock, whatever. And it completely covers that, and it makes the cuts look seamless. It'll make things fit together when I adhere them, etc. So I did all of that, I did all my stamping. I did all my shading, all the trimming and fussy cutting, and then all of the edging with that TUXEDO black marker. And then I took another piece of cardstock and I stamped the cup multiple times. And 2 of them I just stamped just to get this top portion like to color my coffee. That I only need 2 of them. That was another reason I kind of, you know, I planned a little bit ahead of time for once. Usually I'm flying by the seat of my pants with just absolutely everything. But I was like, ooh, you won't be able to, if I stack them and adhere them properly, you'll only see the top liquid. So did quick, simple coloring, and same thing. Quickly fussy cut these out and edged all of that with the Memento Tuxedo block marker. And I'm going to set those aside. And then all of those other cups that I had stamped, I quickly trimmed them all apart with my scissors. So they were all individual pieces, because those I'm going to die cut with the little coordinating wafer die. Another just not tedious, but just another repetitive process. And for this, I use my little Honeybee mini die cut machine. This one is only available through Honeybee. You can't get it anywhere else. I'll link to a couple of other options too. Hero Arts has a cute little die cut machine. Tim Holtz has one as well. They're handy little things. Like, I remember when I got my first little mini die cut machine, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I remember getting it just more on a whim because I was like, am I really going to use this thing? I love my mini die cut machines. I purposely went with this one versus like my Empress mini that you guys see in a lot of my videos. I love my Empress mini. It's great. It would have handled this fine. Using a little manual machine like this, it's just faster. I don't have to wait for the plates to run through like I do with the Empress mini, and I was die cutting like a dozen of these. So a little tiny baby die cut machine comes in so handy. Well, you can see by the plates, they are cut into a bajillion times. All my small die cuts, always. I grab my little machine and do all of my die cutting if it fits in there, because it is way faster than dealing with large plates, a full-size machine, etc. So, yeah. But again, the Empress Mini, it would have been fine. This was faster. So I die cut all of these cups. And I had just little pieces of washi tape to hold it in place so it doesn't shift when I run it through my machine. And again, just did it all one by one as I think I was like watching YouTube videos or something. And then I adhere them. And I'm going to use my craft tacky glue to adhere these. And like I said, you cannot tell that I cut in between the cup and the handle there. I just made sure that I, applied glue right up to those little edges, and then stuck it into place onto each of these. And that's it. Like, I don't know. There's something satisfying. One about paper piecing, but then adding the shading, and I've been enjoying the coffee theme, and rainbow colors always make me happy. So adhered all of these to their little die cut counterparts. And then once those were die cut, for my backgrounds, I knew as well, because I'd kind of stacked all the cups up and I don't have a lot of space around them. So I'm not going to do my stamping with my coffee mug like I've done on the recent cards. Instead, I just took more white cardstock and I trimmed these down. These right now are 3.5 by 8.5 inches. I'll trim them down more when I'm done. But I pulled out this Simon Says stamp. I think it's reverse chevron. I'll have a link to it. This stencil came out, I forget how long ago, and it's one of my favorites. I want more brands to do like 6x9 stencils like this, because they work for everything, A2, 5x7, Slimline, Anyway, I have my Platinum 6 machine here, and I have the universal plate system. And what works best for me to dry emboss with a stencil is I have the base plate, the little thin Mylar shim, the B plate, the cardstock that I spritzed lightly with water, and then the stencil. Those are on top of the rubber mat, and then the gray mat, or the gray plate. And I run it through my machine, and it presses the stencil into the cardstock and creates that fabulous dry emboss texture. And it's just a fun way to get more use out of your stencils. It's subtle. It's hard to, you can see it kind of now on camera, but in my final pictures, you can't really see it, but in real life, you can see it. And it just looks, I love dry embossing. I love how it looks. So I did that to those panels. And then I adhered the little pieces of coffee to the cups that are going to go on top of this stack. And then I'm going to adhere the cups together first before adhering them to the background. And again, off camera, I had like stacked them up. I made sure everything was going to fit. And again, more often than not, I don't. And then I just have to adjust as I'm creating and filming. I'm like, that's not going to work. Let's add some splatter to fix this. You guys know. Anyway, I stacked them together with the Craft Tacky glue, and then I put Big Mama foam tape on the back of these so that they'll give a little bit of dimension to it. So put that on the back of both of these stacks of cups, and then I stuck these to the backgrounds. And the backgrounds I had trimmed down. They're like 3 inches by 8 inches, I think, something like that. They're going to be smaller than my card bases when all is said and done. So I adhered these into place, and then I'm going to add splatter because since I couldn't do my coffee rings because you just really wouldn't see much, there's not a whole lot of like space around the stack of coffee cups. So perfect excuse to add splatter. So I use my go-to Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors, the gold, and my fan brush, and my splat box, and I added a ton of gold splatter because why not? And it's beautiful, and it's shiny, and it makes me happy. So splattered the heck out of both of these panels. And then I set those aside to dry because I added like just blobs of splatter. And then my card bases, I cut from black cardstock, and I trim these down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches. So trim those down, and then I'm going to score them at 3.5 inches. So these will be 3.5 by 8.5 inch slimline cards. So use my Teflon bone folder and my little score buddy to score these. And then I always use just the side of my bone folder to press down that fold really, really well. And then after I did that, I just took one of the pieces left over from cutting these card bases down, and I'm going to use that for my sentiments. And for my sentiments, I pulled out the Flower Happy stamp set. This is in Simon's July card kit, and it's available individually. Like everything, I'll have links to all of that. I love the sentiments in this stamp set. I love the font, and they're just perfect. So I used my anti-static powder tool on the cardstock, and then stamped this little Hello Friend sentiment onto it with clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to coat that with Simon's Detail Gold embossing powder, and then melt that with my heat tool, which will never get old for me. There's something, again, it's another one of those things. There's just something really satisfying and sort of magical about melting embossing powder. It will never get old. Anyway, melted that, removed the excess anti-static powder, and then I just grabbed circle wafer dies from my stash and die cut those. And then I cut a couple more little panels of white cardstock to put on the inside of the cards, and I stamped another sentiment from that same Flower Happy set, and I stamped that with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. Decided to keep the insides kind of simple, just cause, and leaves enough space to write to the recipient and whatnot. So stamp that onto the inside of both of these panels, and then I'm going to adhere everything together. So I'm going to adhere the panels to the inside of the card. Again, just Craft Tacky glue for that. Same with the card fronts. I'm also just going to adhere those with Craft Tacky glue since I put the foam tape behind the cups to give it dimension. You could pop up the card fronts with foam tape as well, but I just decided not to. So adhered those with Craft Tacky glue. And then for the sentiments, I used like the leftover scrap from what I had stamped and heat embossed the sentiments, and I just die cut smaller circles from those, and I just stacked them together and then put those behind each of these little sentiment circles, so it'll give it just a teeny bit more dimension, but not as thick as adding like foam squares or anything like that. So adhered those together, let that dry, and then I popped those onto both these cards and ended up deciding to kind of put them in the center because that one card had like blobs of the splatter on the cups, and I didn't really like how that looked. And like I always say, cover it up. Stick an embellishment, a die cut, whatever on top of it, and you're good to go. So I did that, and then as my final embellishment, I have some gem stickers from Honeybee Stamps. And with these, I always just use my little die pick there, the little sharp end of the die pick, just to peel it up because these are self-adhesive. And I just stuck a bunch of them in rainbow order to go with the cups because, you know, go big or go home. Why not? So stuck those and did that to both of these cards. And once those are adhered, these cards are complete. So these are really fun to make. And like I mentioned earlier, I will have a link to my coffee themed cards playlist at the end of this video. I'll also link the other 2 videos I did using this little Coffee Friend stamp set. And directly below the video in the description box, I will have a link to my blog post. And in my blog posts, I always have like the pictures of the cards and picture links to all the supplies I use. So you can check that out below. I also link, of course, to all the supplies I used, my social medias, all the things. It's all below if you guys are interested. And thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.